want to thank all the organizers and in particular the speakers. We will debate agri-food system as a lever for climate neutrality and the role of partnership. We have a very dense agenda, so without further ado, I leave the floor to Professor Riccaboni, which is chair of the Prima initiative, for his introductory remarks.
Thank you, Giovanni, and I would like to thank UFM and UNEP for organizing with us this Mediterranean Pavilion. It's the first time there is a Mediterranean Pavilion at the COP. I think it's a clear signal that we want and we need to work together in order to tackle challenges in front of us. I don't need to say here which is the situation in the Mediterranean. We just can say that it is a hotspot for climate change, and the climate change is strongly affecting our food systems. So in order to deal with these challenges that also have clear social and economic consequences with major tensions, and we know that also the war in Ukraine is exacerbating the situation in terms of food security. So we all know that, so we don't need to spend time on it. What we need to do is working on solutions. We need to work on how to deal with these issues. And we all share the view that innovation is key to deal with the challenges in front of us. And just starting from that, a few years ago, 19 countries and the European Union started a process and started an initiative called PRIMA. PRIMA stands for Partnership for Research and Innovation in the Mediterranean Area, and with a budget of €500 million put by the 19 countries and the European Commission, we are working hard in order to launch and evaluate calls on issues such as better use of water, sustainable farming, food as a lever for regional and national growth, and also now we are working hard on the nexus between water, energy, food, and ecosystems. And we have funded so far 168 projects spending €230 million, and we have 1,600 research units working together on these issues. So we are creating a true Mediterranean ecosystem on innovation, and this is very important to tackle the challenges in front of us. So first of all, I would like to say that this is also due to the fact that at the basis of the initiative is the so-called principle of equal footing. I am the co-chair of the initiative. My dear friend and colleague Mohamed Shinawi, here with us today, is the other co-chair, and this is extremely important that we co-fund, we co-manage, we co-govern this initiative. And in each project which is funded by us, there must be one partner from the north of the Mediterranean and at least one partner from the south and east. So we do believe that the principle of equal footing is fundamental. I think that our initiative is considered now, not by us, but the general opinion, as a case of success, and we are now ready for the next step. So we would like to share with you also thoughts about the next step, because as it is emerging at the COP, one of the key issues for the future is knowledge transfer. I mean, innovation is wonderful, research is wonderful, but we need to go from laboratories to the real world. We need to go from universities and research centers to communities, enterprises, institutions, to show that we can make it better. So these are the challenges in front of us. First, how to scale up. Secondly, how to contribute to the roadmaps of other actors, such as the UFM, which has recently prepared the so-called roadmaps of research and innovation. But also how we can contribute to deal with the new challenges as the ones coming from the current geopolitical situation. So these are the three issues in front of us. We do believe that only together we can make it. We are very proud that we have a wonderful relationship with the UFM, Union for the Mediterranean, is our key strategic partner. So we want to go on in this way, but we need to share views and to listen what key stakeholders and experts can say that. For this reason, we organized this panel. I'm concluding just to say that the Mediterranean area can be and is a test bed for the world on how to tackle challenges. So what we are doing in the Mediterranean in terms of, for instance, of cooperation can be really important for other parts of the world. So we are here to listen to experts and stakeholders to see how to do it better. Thank you very much, and back to Giovanni. Thanks.
Thank you, Angelo, for your introductory remarks. It's my pleasure now to give the floor to Professor Jeffrey Sachs, who is a global leader on sustainable development, director of the Center for Sustainable Development at the Columbia University, and SDG advocate under UN Secretary General. So with great pleasure we listen your keynote speech. Jeff, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this occasion. Thank you to Prima for its leadership. Let me say just in a few words what this food challenge is. When we look at the broad climate challenge, there are two main categories of challenge. On the one hand is the energy system transformation, and on the other is the land management transformation. Food, agriculture, and land use more generally. Of the two, both are very complicated, but the land and food questions are more complicated, actually, than the energy questions. So this is an even harder challenge. One reason is that there are hundreds of food systems around the world. For energy, there are a handful of key technologies that are used throughout the world, but with food systems, there are hundreds of local climates, cultures, food choices, and food systems. So it's a more complicated challenge inherently. But the food sector faces three fundamental, still unsolved problems. First, the food sector itself and the land use sector is a major contributor. It's the major contributor to human-induced environmental crisis. Even on climate change, as you know, the land use sector broadly defined, food, agriculture, forestry, accounts for 30% or so of all greenhouse gas emissions. Absolutely stunning. That's carbon dioxide, that's methane from rice, from ruminant animals, it's nitrous oxide from fertilizers. It's a huge proportion of the human-induced warming. So the food system itself is not sustainable, period. Second, the food system is not resilient. It is getting hammered by the ongoing climate change. Water stress is an obvious area where across the world farmers are facing more and more crisis of bringing in a crop. Thermal stress is fundamental. Land degradation is occurring. And all of these mean that the supply of food to markets is under tremendous environmental duress. So that's the second dimension. The third dimension of problem is even where we are today is nowhere near adequate for the needs of the world. The single most shocking number for me is the estimate made annually by the Food and Agriculture Organization that 3 billion people cannot afford a healthy diet right now. On the world, we have such an inequality of income that whether it's 3 billion or arguably even a larger number, 40 to 50% of the world does not eat a nutritious diet, and we know that roughly 1 in 7 struggle daily for the physical energy and protein intake to stay alive. They're the hungry, the acute hungry category. So we have 3 completely massive problems that food contributes to the ongoing environmental degradation. It is the first victim of the ongoing environmental crisis. And today, probably today actually, because it's in the month of November, we reach 8 billion world population, according to the UN estimates. And the world population is rising by about 80 to 85 million per year. And we're not even feeding 3 billion people right now currently in any way remotely adequately. Oh, so what are we going to do? Okay, this is where projects like PRIMA are so essential. The first thing is we need changes of agricultural technology and know-how to reduce the adverse environmental damage from agriculture and to make the agriculture system more resilient. So that is a matter of know-how. Some of that know-how is known. Other kinds of know-how still need to be developed. Agriculture is a science and engineering enterprise. It has been for 10,000 years. We especially need that now. We need the know-how to create a lower environmental impact and resilience to climate change. Second, we are going to need new financing strategies to scale up any of these solutions. So PRIMA is developing solutions throughout the Mediterranean region, this remarkable cradle of civilization, and solutions can be found, but scaling them up matters a lot. And the adequacy of finance matters a lot, because if the solution requires capital investment, for example, new irrigation technology, and that is an investment, if the financing is not right, this is just going to put food further out of the reach of populations. It's going to make food even more expensive. It's going to widen this dramatic gap between the food haves and the food have-nots of the world. So we need to link the technical and scientific solutions to financial solutions. And we obviously need to link these solutions to social and cultural solutions as well, and to broader economic development. One of the things that will happen is agriculture will become even more science-based, even more capital-intensive, even more mechanized. And many of the hundreds of millions of people working in the food sector will have children who will work in other parts of the economy, and they will need an education, skills, livelihoods, and a context for their future as well. So we're talking also about food in the context of broader sustainable development. All of it is an enormous challenge. That's why we are at COP27. This is the biggest challenge that we face on the planet. Our politicians generally are wasting time not on the biggest challenges, but on dropping bombs or doing other things that are purely destructive rather than solving the problems that we face on this planet. But we're here to find solutions, and thank goodness for PRIMA. It will help to guide the way, and then we need to create the financial and institutional basis to take that knowledge and put it to action at full national and regional scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Sachs, for setting the scene in such a very well completed way, touching several key issues from water scarcity to land use, regarding the agri-food systems, as well as the need to involve finance. And it's my pleasure now to give the floor to Eba Helahariri from FAO Regional Office here in Cairo, which is expert in water scarcity and leader of the Water Scarcity Initiative at FAO, which is very much needed when we talk about agri-food system. Heba, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, first, I just wanted to say I'm very happy and very delighted to be here with you today and to speak about the role of partnerships and cooperation in research and innovation to advance agri-food systems. And let me just begin by highlighting that the main message, key message for FAO within the COP27 is actually agri-food systems at the center of solutions for the climate crisis. So building on what we've heard in the introductory remarks, the MENA region is one of the world's regions that will be mostly affected by climate change. The increase in temperature in extreme events, heat waves, will severely impact particularly the small farmers and the poorer communities which have a lower capacity to adapt and also to cope with these changes. We've also seen the impacts of the global crisis. I think we've all felt that during the past couple of years, coming from the pandemic crisis and how it actually affected the supply chain and how we are still suffering from the geopolitical challenges as well that are still affecting the supply chain in several regions. Add to that for example, the current projections indicates that the MENA region population will reach by 2050 around 633 million people, almost where 3/4 of them will be living in cities. So this will be also translated into an increased demand of food, an increased demand in divertised diets, which will add also pressures on the land and water resources in the region, and will also increase the dependency of our region for food imports and for virtual water. So to address all these challenges, we really need to focus on having agri-food systems that are resilient, that are sustainable, and also that are more productive. There are several options where we can start working on several solutions to advance those the agri-food systems and to overcome those challenges. Climate-smart agriculture is considered one of the main opportunities that we can see. The use of remote sensing applications in agri-food systems has proved during the past couple of years to have significant results when it comes to evaluation of, for example, land degradation, also enhancing the water efficiency, water productivity. We have been working on different projects to look at the rapid water accounting technologies and how these technologies can also help us better make scientific-based decision making, and how we can look at the broader picture and to evaluate our options and to choose the different, to look at different trade-offs. Additionally, there are also several elements where we can better utilize the digital technologies to support farmers. Small-scale farmers and rural producers can benefit a lot from the digital technologies like the mobile applications, and we have also did several projects on that, and we have seen the added value of using these digital applications to farmers to access information, to access also the different data that is related to services and how we can facilitate that for them. Of course, if they were giving the proper training, and this can be also done through the farmer field schools that FAO has been leading in different countries in the Arab region, proved to be also with a great added value. On the partnership element, I believe the projects similar to the Salam Med, where we are mobilizing multi-partners to look at the multi-dimensional risks and multi-dimensional challenges and issues is very important, because at the end we would like to look at integrated solutions where we are not only tackling the scientific element but also the socio-economic aspects which require different types of expertise. Finally, I just want to say that, as mentioned in the opening remarks, that the transfer of knowledge is also very important. And I would like to highlight that recently, in June this year, FAO launched its interregional technical platform on water scarcity, which is also considered like a platform for multi-partners who can work together on action-based solutions. In order to come up with more integrated solutions that can help in sustaining the agri-food systems. Thank you very much. I'll stop here.
Thank you, Eba, for your clear message and touching the role of innovation and multi-stakeholder approach, as well as concrete cases in the MENA region. It's my pleasure now to give the floor to Director Bell, Director of A Healthy Planet at the European Commission. European Commission is very much active in promoting the role of partnership as well as a global actor in climate neutrality. Director Bell is supervising the PRIMA initiative as well as other European partnership. So it's my pleasure to give him the floor. He will join us online. Please, Director Bell, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Sabah al-Khair, Angelo and Mohammed and my colleagues there at the COP. I'm John Bell, Director of Healthy Planet Research and Innovation, driving transitions for the European Union. So as we've heard from Jeffrey Sachs and from Heba El-Hariri, we have a different context to face, and we simply will not be able to make a climate resilient transition if we don't have a food systems transition. And for food systems transition to take place in an equitable, accessible and secure way, science, research, innovation needs to step up and move from observation to translation. And this PRIMA partnership of ours is showing very successfully how we need to do this together, how we need to do this as equals, how we need to do this focusing on systemic impacts and not scientific inputs. So the challenge of our day to make peace with nature in climate and ecosystems is at the heart of what the European Green Deal says for the European Union. It's what the European Union is actually for between now and 2050. And what we've done in the European Green Deal, number one, is to entirely redirect all of what the European Union does, whether you're talking about science or finance or programs or monetary or fiscal policy or investment taxonomy or any of our policies, industrial policies, land use policies, has been to completely refit what the European Union is for around arriving at a climate neutral continent, working within planetary boundaries, environmental boundaries in a socially and just way. And our work with our neighbours who are strategically important to us, in particular in the Mediterranean, is central to this. So how do we get to where we need to get to in terms of the ticking time clock of both climate neutrality and climate adaptation? And I think resilience is going to be at the heart of all of this. One of the things is we have to work in a systemic way. We can't simply have incremental innovation. Our food systems are not fit for purpose. And the good thing about the things that Jeffrey pointed out earlier on is that there are areas where massive improvements can be made in terms of moving to a post-waste system, lower impact on resources, higher distribution of nutritional food and benefits through better logistics and cold chains, and the uses of different forms, the appliance of science to make healthy food available affordably in the future. But we need to focus on that as a systemic goal. You see in Farm to Fork, which is the major food shift policy for the European Union, that we are trying to focus on impacts like, of course, climate neutrality in land use, which is hugely difficult, working with our farming communities and our fisheries communities, dealing with the problems of nutrition, of nutrients, of fertilizers and pesticides and so forth. And what it tells us, secondly, is that research and innovation is no longer in a role observing transition. Research and innovation and science has a responsibility in this decade of decision to set direction and to move to systemic approaches, to take on the responsibility of de-risking the scaling, the acceleration, the sharing of these solutions, to set out a vision for a sustainable bioeconomy destination that works in a joint-up way across all of these big areas of transition, whether you're talking about food or water or energy or health. And we have to move in transition to translation. So we must translate in a very accessible way the results of those areas of investment in research, innovation, and deployment that will allow the scaling and the sharing and the acceleration of solutions. For the European Union, that has meant we have this massive commitment in Horizon Europe, in the European Green Deal call, where we spent €1 billion on setting new directions. In Cluster 6, which I co-chair with colleagues from Environment and Agriculture, the biggest single increase in investment in research innovation. We have a €10 billion research innovation program trying to work on these solutions. Prima sits in the middle of this. Partnerships are critical to resilience. There is no other way to move forward. And that's why we have 6 partnerships in this cluster, ranging from work that we do on agroecology, the data of agriculture, sustainable food systems, indeed sustainable blue economy systems, because the land-water interconnection will also be critical. We're also working in partnership with member states, 38 countries, through the Standing Committee on Agricultural Research. And we're moving to a mission-based approach, and we need mission thinking here. As we did when we got people onto the moon and back, we need to get people to what a sustainable food system will look like fairly and justly and inclusively. And that has meant we've set up these Green Deal missions, one on a soil deal, which is about getting 100 living laboratories to apply and deploy solutions at scale in real places. One is on a mission for climate adaptation, so 150 regions will be resilient across these critical risks. We have a mission to restore the ocean and water system, which is critical, that we get 100 communities on the coast, in fisheries areas and on rivers to move forward in terms of the pollution, the ecosystems and the decarbonisation, and 100 cities. As I think Heba said, Al-Hariri, it's very important that the food system will be also have to be deployed in the way in which our cities are developed. So Prima, to conclude coming into this, is a brilliant start in working out a new way to do this translation and to drive acceleration and scaling and systemic change through partnership. We've started very well. As Angelo has said, the first 4 years, I think, has been a very important success. I think how we work together is probably the most important thing. The European Commission, the European Union, is committed to taking forward Prima and to look at what Prima's role is and should be with our partners in the region in terms of where we need to go next, what should the scale of ambition be, how should we move things forward, how much more should we be dealing with the translation of what we're doing on the ground to make it available, and how can we move in a more systemic way. So here we are at the center of the great transition. Clearly, if we want to understand what we're doing at the COP in terms of both the climate mitigation existential necessity and the climate resilient political and social urgency, we need to start finding a measure of transition. And for me, the measure of transition, the food systems, the sustainability of our food systems will be the benchmark of climate resilience. We need to find a way to pay attention to that and to measure it and to ensure that, as we said at the UN Food Summit last year, we have the institutions, the focus, the measurement and the investment and the science to turn it into a reality for those who are most dependent on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bell, for your inspiring remarks and for having touched so many issues, including this idea of a food system as a benchmark for climate transition and the focus on translation. And precisely on these, on food system and food sector as a benchmark on climate transition, I would like also to now invite to deliver his speech Ambassador Gatti, which is a special envoy for the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation on food security. And we know how much important this issue of food security is nowadays for a resilient and sustainable food system. So thank Ambassador Gatti for your presence and for having put food security at the center of your diplomatic activity. Ambassador Gatti, the floor is yours. You might turn on the camera. Ambassador Gatti is. If we can have pass to the new speaker and invite him to join it later. And now it's my pleasure to include in the debate WFO Secretary General Arianna Giuliodori, Secretary General for World Farmers Organization. Angelo Riccaboni, in his introductory remarks, has highlighted the importance of farmers, and it's our pleasure to have you in the panel. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the invitation and for the opportunity to address this incredible panel, and from the perspective of the farmers of the world, from the perspective of those who produce food every day with their hands in the soil. We heard Professor Sachs, thank you very much for thrashing out the problems, the challenges that we are facing. And as farmers, we are really committed to find solutions. And it's with this spirit of driving solutions, bringing solutions to the table, that we're all here at COP27. And for the first time ever, with a huge delegation of more than 120 farmers from all over the continents, all over the world, we're here to say that farmers are aware that climate change is the real challenge we have to face. We are aware because we experience it on the field. We experience it on the farm every day. We are aware that this is causing shocks. But we are also aware that while the world is busy pointing the finger at the emission side of the game concerning agriculture, we are one of the biggest solutions that the world has to solve the problem of climate change. And that's why we want solutions to be shaped with the farmers, by the farmers, but also profoundly rooted in science. We need the best available science to be able to move on and succeed in these challenges. And for this to happen successfully, we need all the stakeholders, all the actors of the value chain, all the governments, the research world, the civil society to join hands and to come together, recognizing that the challenge is only one, is to make our planet healthier and to ensure a future for our children. The farmers are already committing to do that. They are a piece of the solution. They are a partner. And with this, probably we need to stop just for 1 second and ask ourselves a question: who are the farmers? Because most of the times we see a polarization. We want to see them either as smallholders or people who are suffering hunger, or on the opposite side as nasty polluters, agribusiness. But you know, none of this is the real truth. We are the people in the food systems. We are the families that anchor the communities in rural areas and that connect the bridges with the cities. We are, first and foremost, economic actors. And as long as governments don't recognize this fundamental component of agriculture, we won't get to viable solutions. Solutions to climate change, solutions to biodiversity challenge, solutions to the nutrition challenge. But let's not forget, we must feed the world. And Professor Sachs was reminding us, we are reaching the 8 billion people. We are heading towards 10 billion people. So we, the farmers, every day, we make choices on the farm. And the very single choice we make must answer to food security, must answer to climate change, to nutrition, to biodiversity, all at once. And we are ready to do that. We are ready to change when necessary. And it's important that we are all aware that the viability of the farming sector is the entry point to make sure that we can invest in environmental sustainability and social change. So, how can we do that? So let's recognize, first, farmers are the only ones farming is the only sector that can mitigate and adapt at the same time. So basically, we can go beyond adaptation and mitigation. We can start considering that farming can generate a positive impact on nature. We can store carbon. We can provide a positive balance, but we need science here again. We need to build bridges with science because we do have a lot of data around emissions, but we do not have enough data around what the farmers are doing to contribute, to store carbon, for instance, in the soil. And we can do better with science in making sure that we identify the good practices and we deploy them. So technology is for sure one big part of the solution. And we heard from FAO about it. But are we sure that technology right now is accessible and affordable to farmers? Are the technological solutions fit to answers to the needs of the farmers? So again here, the invitation of the farmers is to collaborate. Professor Riccoboni said PRIMA initiative is co-managed between different sides of the Mediterranean Sea. We need science to co-create with the stakeholders the strategy. Farmers have something to say. They already have solutions. They, for sure, need more and need to do better. So here, I told you, there are many farmers around. I warmly invite you to stop by when you meet one of those. For instance, here in the room, we have of our WFO members from Jamaica, a farmer leader, a woman farmer leader. There are many. They can share their stories. They have something to tell to all of us. Not to teach, but to share and to advance together. So, coming to my conclusions, initiatives like PRIMA are fundamental because they can build bridges between North and South. And the Mediterranean is an amazing opportunity to prove that we can come together across continents. The World Farmers Organization represents today more than 1 billion farmers from all the continents. Here in the Mediterranean, we can prove through initiatives like PRIMA that it's possible to build solutions together and to co-manage and co-design. But let me also say something about COP itself. While we're here discussing about how important agriculture is, the part of the solution that agriculture can bring, parties are still not able to converge on giving a future, for instance, to the Coronivia joint work on agriculture. So the farmers are also here to say, if we want agriculture to be part of the equation, we also need to take it on board fully within the COP negotiations. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Arianna, for your energy and your comments on the potentialities of farmers to solve some of our issues and the focus on solutions. And that gives me the opportunity to introduce the next speaker, Professor Kunduri, which is chair of the SDSN Europe, together with Professor Riccoboni as well, and Greece. So my pleasure to give you the floor. She's expert in energy sector, and we know how much is important agri-food and energy sector as well for the agri-food system. Please.
Thank you very much for having me here. Honored to join this panel and honored to be here with Angelo, who mobilized this important initiative for the Mediterranean region. Truly important, mainly not just because of the science that it's promoting, but because it's bringing together the two parts that are instrumental for the so much needed information capacity transfer. Europe and Northern Africa, it's so important. Let me put this in the context of the SDGs, because I believe that the SDGs are a very useful blueprint for identifying our pathways forward towards sustainability. SDG 6, water and sanitation, SDG on food, SDG on affordable and clean energy, SDG on land use. These seem to be the basic SDGs forming this water, food, energy and ecosystems nexus, But if you look into them, and we have research on this, you can see that these SDGs have a heavy load on the implementation of all other SDGs. They are very, very important. They are very important in the holistic sketching of the technological policy and financial pathways that will lead us to a sustainable roadmap, a sustainable pathway. So, what do we need in order to implement it? First, we need to know that we are very low in terms of our performance in implementing these 4 SDGs and the others that are affected by the implementation of these 4 SDGs. If you look at the Sustainable Development Report of the United Nations Sustainable Development Solution Networks, you will see that the No Hunger SDG, which is about food, is one of the lowest performing SDGs. If you look at the SDG that is about land use, it's low performing. If you look at the SDG of water and sanitation, it's indeed very low performing. So we are not doing our work. And we are not doing our work well in any continent. What do we have to do to make progress? I lead an alliance of excellence with various research institutions and also accelerators that are focusing on the transition pathways that we need in order to get on a sustainable development path. And this alliance also supports the UNSDSN Global Climate Hub that has in its mission to identify, detail, and downscale country-specific pathways that will allow us to get on the pathway of technological adaptation, of policy implementation, and financial solutions that will get us where we want to be in 2050, let's say, because we all know 2030 is not the relevant deadline. And in this work, we do this so-called science policy stakeholders interface. So we, at the moment, run tens of projects on land use, land, water, energy, biodiversity, nexus, funded by the European Commission, Horizon 2020, the European Research Council, PRIMA, but also other organizations that are located in all 5 continents. And we have created an open access, open source platform where you can find the data that feeds into the climate modeling, the land use modeling, the population projections modeling, and the economic growth modeling, which are also there per country, that can be simulated with the data that is also there per country. And based on different simulations, we have a platform where we engage stakeholders from all different angles, policymakers, politicians, financial institutions, businesses, and the civil society, in order to interact both virtually through the platform, but also in real living labs in these countries to co-design, to interact with the science simulators in order to bring in their knowledge, expertise, and experiences and co-design and then co-own the pathways. And at the end of the day, we can propose pathways that are designed and known by everybody who is there and is relevant for the implementation. And this is how we believe that implementation is possible. And this COP is about implementation. It's about using the science that is already there, the technology, the technological innovation and the social innovation that is already there, the financial instruments that have been designed, but they need to better integrate into the businesses of the food sector, of the water sector, of the energy sector, the instruments that have been designed to compensate those that are conserving ecosystem services. There is a huge role to play for ecosystem services and nature-based solutions which can finance activities of the farmers when they are ecosystem resilient. And this is how you can increase the income of the farmer. And there is huge work on this. And we are at stages where implementation should start scaling up. So let's scale up these holistic solutions. Open data and open science is there to support them. And let's make this COP the beginning of an accelerated pathway towards where we want to be in this difficult world of multiple crises. Thank you.
Thank you, Febe, for these remarks, especially the involvement of the civil society as well as a key actor in this holistic approach to agri-food systems. I see the audience is quite crowded. You know, if there are some questions or comments from the audience, please, just very short.
Yeah, just simple question. Do we have solutions for extreme weather events, heat waves that drop the flowering, or sudden heavy rains that destroy crops like onion and fava beans? And if we have, how to easily disseminate it on the right time to the small farmers everywhere in the Mediterranean?
Jeff, is it Heba? Please.
Yes, I believe the development of early warning systems needs to be taken maybe into consideration, maybe be scaled up in lots of countries. We are been speaking about extreme weather events, and but I believe the current efforts towards establishing such systems is still lacking behind. We also need to look at how we can translate the climate indicators into agriculture indicators that will tell us how this is going to be affecting the agricultural production, the loss and damage, and I think lots of efforts needs to be taken still into account in this particular element. But I believe that anticipatory action needs to be upscaled, particularly and mainstream within the agricultural planning systems. In order to
I don't know what happened.
to avoid the impacts of these extreme events in the future, and to ensure that we have sustainability of our production.
It's my pleasure now to give the floor to Stefano Gatti, Italian ambassador and special envoy for food security at the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I apologize with him for the technical problem we had. Ambassador Gatti, the floor is yours. Yeah, I know. Ambassador Gatti, can you hear us? We are quite, can you hear us from the Med Pavilion?
Yes.
Please.
I can hear you, but I'm not in the session.
Yeah, no, go. The floor is yours. You are in the session.
Yes. Okay. I hope that is the case because I can't see the session, but if you...
Yes, the floor is yours, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can hear you.
then I make my speech. I'm sorry I cannot
Sure,
see you, and there are problems of connections. But anyway, thank you very much. I wanted first of all to thank Prima Foundation for the invitation, and obviously say hi to Jeffrey Sachs. I did manage to follow his intervention, always very interesting as usual. So let me give this kind of contribution to the discussion we had today. I would like to concentrate a little bit. It's not up to me to explain, why the issues we are dealing are very important, and why food and food systems are so important. It has been said very well from previous speakers, but I would like to concentrate a little bit on why the Mediterranean. Now, if you look at the Mediterranean countries and the countries bordering the Mediterranean, none of these countries are in the list of the least developed countries of the United Nations. And the Mediterranean, north and south, is not one of the regions where the United Nations indicates that there is a catastrophic situation of hunger, and where directly people are dying of hunger. So the question will be, but why then do we have to work on the Mediterranean? Italy believes that we have to work on the resilience of food system, first of all, with a regional approach, because there are very important regional elements in food systems, and this is much more important in the Mediterranean. But also because the Mediterranean region, as has been said also by Jeffrey Sachs, is incredibly rich in diversity, in tradition and culture of food, but has also a number of very important elements of fragility. Fragilities that have been highlighted: water issues, land degradation, thermal stress, and all the other elements that have been highlighted before are very much present in the Mediterranean region. In addition to this, the Mediterranean region has been struck very strongly by the consequences of the war in Ukraine, where a number of Mediterranean countries are highly dependent on imports of essential food items from Russia and Ukraine. It's for that reason that Italy has decided to launch an agreement with the G7 partners and countries, an initiative on the Mediterranean that is a Mediterranean ministerial dialogue on the food crisis that had its first session the 8th of June this year. This dialogue has been initiated by Italy in a close technical collaboration with FAO. As a result of this dialogue, 24 countries and 8 international organizations participated at this ministerial dialogue that was chaired by our foreign minister. The second session of the dialogue will be taking place in the next few weeks, the 2nd of December in Rome, and this is the reason why I could not join you in person in Sharm el-Sheikh, something that I would have really wanted to do. So what is interesting that in the first session of this dialogue, 5 fields of cooperation were identified by the participating countries and international organizations, and it wouldn't be surprised that science and technology development, know-how is one of the 5 fields of cooperation. So in this field of cooperation, countries and international organizations have correctly identified it as the PRIMA program financed by the European Union that you have heard from Angelo Carboni and representative of the European Commission, a key program for achieving this, moving forward. And we are looking forward to collaborate with the PRIMA Foundation to make a number of announcements on how we will move forward on this in the 2nd of December. So I wanted, in this intervention just to highlight a specific collaboration activity that we are taking forward, and we look forward to continue to collaborate with FAO, with PRIMA, with the European Commission, and with the Mediterranean countries. Please put on your agenda the 2nd of December. Invitations are going out for the ministerial participation, and Italy is very much engaged in collaborating on food system resilience at the Mediterranean and regional level. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Gatti, for your speech. and your invitation and having touched this diplomatic initiative that Italy, together with other Mediterranean countries, is leading. So it's my pleasure now to invite Secretary General of Union for the Mediterranean, Nasser Kamel, to a concluding comment and remarks on the issue. It's a great pleasure to have him here at the Med Pavilion. Secretary General, the floor is yours.
Well, I have no concluding remarks per se, for two reasons. One, I'm the generalist here who knows very little about everything, and you know so many things about the subject at hand. So my message here is that the relation the Union for the Mediterranean has with PRIMA is an example of how what we call science-led policy making is. This organic fusion between what PRIMA is doing and we are doing in the field of education and in the field of science diplomacy is a prime example how we could use our convening power as an intergovernmental organization to steer our member states towards adopting policies based on science and based on the knowledge acquired through the tremendous work achieved or has been achieved by PRIMA in the last few years, and with the new agenda of PRIMA, which has as a priority climate and also energy transition, health, and other. Not to talk about the whole nexus between food and the Mediterranean diet, etc., etc., etc. So this is a perfect example of why we policymakers, and I'm not one of them, but when I say we, I mean our member states, should base their policy, their planning, their budgeting on the science produced by those projects that are a north-south initiative in research, a very, very exciting journey that has developed in the last few years, but is going to develop even further in the next few years. For that, I thank everyone here who participated in this beautiful event, and especially the co-chairs of PRIMA, who has done tremendous work in really steering the region into a real cooperation in the field of science, and science related to dealing with the real challenge our region is facing. So for that, a big thanks to all of you. Thank you, Jeffrey, for being with us. It's very prestigious having someone of your caliber participate in this event, and for everyone in this beautiful panel. And I hope this COP would have the full glass full and not only half glass full like it was in Glasgow. Thank you very much.
Mohammed? Just a final comment from Mohammed El-Shinawi, which is co-chair of the PRIMA initiative, for concluding very brief remarks.
Thank you so much, Giovanni, and I would like to thank all our panelists today. It was a great pleasure and honor to have you here in Sharm el-Sheikh in the COP27. We really enjoyed your talk, and let me conclude by just summarizing what you just have said, because what all you have just said is going exactly in what we need here in COP. It's time for implementation. We had a lot of strategies, we put a lot of words, but it's really time of implementation. Angelo was very clear when he said that it's time for innovation, and we have to move from laboratories to the industry, and we need to scale up. This is very crucial, and we have to coordinate together. And as usual, Jeffrey was very clear in how that we have a real problems and fundamental problems that we have to work on, especially in food system, how it's not resilient, thermal stress, land degradation, the major contribution to human effect in nature, but at the same time he mentioned that we had a lot of opportunities and a lot of work to do. Heba was very clear about what the FAO is doing and how the resilient and sustainable food system is very crucial and that we need to start working very hard in technologies and the digital technologies. John, as usual, was very clear about it's time for translational research. We had a lot of basic research, but our communities has to be really understand what we are doing and see the effect of what we are doing. And we thank him for the trust he mentioned to us in Prima, and that we are in the middle of all these changes and how this massive improvement that we are available for us, and that partnerships and cooperation are crucial for all of us. On the other hand, Ariana from the World Food Organization was very clear about how climate change is a real threat for us. And there is a biggest solution to the climate change within the farmers and what they are doing. And that cooperation with science is very important, and how farming has a positive impact on all what we are doing. And Professor Kunduri was very clear about the role of the SDSN in Europe and how that this is very important in bringing the two shores of the Mediterranean. And we need really to implement our SDGs. We have the SDGs, but our work and what we are doing in this regards is not yet showed to all of us. Ambassador Jetty was very clear about cooperation again. It's all about cooperation. And the role of Italy in having this food crisis initiative with the G7, and how cooperation. And I will end and I will take it from here, my conclusion. Cooperation, understanding the threats that we are having around the Mediterranean are very important. Professor Nasser was very clear, and Ambassador Nasser was very clear that cooperation, what we are doing, science-led cooperation is very important. Alignment of our policies is very crucial for us. Translational research is crucial. We cannot bear the, I would say, the threat that we have around the Mediterranean, and we need to have a real action, real cooperation, and by the end, it's all about sustainability. Again, thank you so much, and it was a pleasure to have you all.
Thanks. We should move faster. Yes.
Thank you so much.